Welcome to our second Vision Science research video about the different types of sources to select from for your literature searches. In this video, we'll cover matching different types of questions to different types of sources. Sources with background information, such as overviews of a topic, and sources with foreground information, such as research studies on very specific topics, which are where you'll find your evidence to make your clinical decisions. We'll discuss the differences between scholarly and professional articles, different study types and their uses, and when you would search databases versus when you would search the web, for example, Google. After making your research or clinical question, the next thing you need to ask is what information you need to know in order to answer that question. You could discover this by brainstorming a list of your questions or by making a mind map of all of your questions. Two general types of questions would be background and foreground questions. Background questions are things that you need to know in order to understand the basics of your topic or to get a general understanding of it. For example, you might want general information about a condition, a disease, or a treatment. These questions might ask who, what, when, where, why about a disorder. For example, we might ask, what is myopia? What are common treatments? The best places to look for answers to these types of questions are usually in background sources such as reference sources like medical textbooks, point of care tools, and narrative reviews. Narrative reviews are articles that go into depth and provide an overview of a topic. When looking at the optometry research guide, you can see the list of databases on the evidence-based optometry page under Find, where to look for evidence. Examples of these would be Access Medicine or Clinical Key. Foreground questions are very specific questions about a disorder or treatment or clinical decision-making. They usually relate to a specific patient or a particular population. These questions tend to be more specific and complex, and they usually make comparisons between two or more intervention options. These are usually PICO questions. So our example is for children aged 5 who have myopia, would 0.05% or 0.01% atropine be more effective for myopia control? Now, we might find atropine would be a possible treatment when we consult the background sources, but now we want to find studies that evaluate the effectiveness of these two possible treatments to find out which would be the most effective treatment for our population. These will need to be research studies, and we'll find these in databases such as PubMed, CINAHL, or Web of Science. We were just discussing how for our foreground questions, that is our research questions or our PICO questions, we'll need to look at research studies. Specifically, we should be looking at peer-reviewed research studies published in journals. Journals that publish research studies such as ophthalmology are peer-reviewed. You can look in their author submission guidelines to see what is involved in their peer-reviewed process. Research studies report the results of research and follow a specific format for writing up the study results so that it's relatively easy for readers to quickly find relevant information when reading these articles. Conversely, trade journals such as Optometry Times are professional magazines. The American Optometric Association, AOA, has a couple of professional magazines, AOA Focus and AOA News. However, articles are written by and for professionals and usually include news, trends, products, or techniques to help you stay current in your field. You can find updates on best practices in these magazines. The articles are usually short and easy to read with photos or other graphics. They're edited by staff from the journal. However, as always, you need to evaluate each of these magazines to make sure you understand their funding and any bias. For example, Optometry Times is published by MJH Life Sciences, which is a private publisher, as opposed to AOA Focus and AOA News, which are published by a professional association. What are professional magazines not? Well, they're not publishing research studies. They're not peer-reviewed. This means that they're not scientific evidence that you can use to help make clinical decisions or for your research. Even if they cover the topic you're interested in, they haven't been peer-reviewed. Peer review is an important part of the scientific process because it's where other researchers will review your research in depth, provide their input, and submit their recommendation on whether your article should be published. Peer review is by no means perfect. Poorly designed studies with flawed logic do get published in reputable journals. However, it's currently our best method for evaluating the quality of scientific literature that's published and disseminated. Getting evidence for your clinical decision-making and for your research from non-peer-reviewed journals such as trade journals or from other sources is to go without this scientific process altogether, and it's completely unacceptable and unethical. Our last video will be on appraising the research studies that we find to determine their quality. So our goal is to start with peer-reviewed research studies and then do our best to think critically about them and evaluate their quality. Read your trade journals to learn news and trends, but stick to peer-reviewed research studies for patient care and for your research. When looking at research studies, there are many different types of studies, and some studies are considered to be designed better and so to have more weight when considering them for clinical decision-making or for answering your research question. Also, certain types of questions are best answered by certain types of studies, or could not be answered by other types of studies because it would be unethical or impossible to do those types. For example, questions about whether a certain treatment would be more effective than another treatment are best answered by randomized controlled trials, but it could also be answered by controlled trials or single subject, single case experimental designs. However, randomized controlled trials are preferred because they have a stronger study design and their results would theoretically have a higher chance of being valid. You can find a description of different study types in the British Medical Journal's glossary of evidence-based medicine terms. Where can you find research studies? You'd want to search for them in the library's databases. Why use the library's databases instead of the web? Unfortunately, many of these articles cost quite a lot of money to access. Some research journals are open access, which allow for increased dissemination of scientific literature since cost is not a barrier for access to those. However, many still are not open access. This means that in order to access them, you need to go through the library's databases. The library has access to our own collections and also the collections of about 38 other academic libraries in the Pacific Northwest through Summit and to libraries worldwide through interlibrary loan. This means that if we don't have access to an article or a book that you need, you can easily request it through Summit or interlibrary loan. Another reason that you'd search the library's databases is their search features. They are made to search for scientific and medical literature that have controlled vocabulary and other features that we'll look into in our next video. This means that you can be much more thorough in your searches and find more relevant resources when you're searching the library's databases than when you're searching the web. So how do you get to these databases? Go to the library's website. You can search the library search box, which searches most of our databases at once. Additionally, you can also search databases individually, which is mostly what we'll learn how to do today because of their specific search features. To get to them, click databases under the search box and then filter to the subject of optometry from the subject drop-down menu so you can see the list of databases that have content related to optometry and vision science. Alternatively, you can go to the optometry research guide and click find, where to look for evidence on the evidence-based optometry page and see the list of databases with those kinds of information. Here's a list of the databases for optometry and vision science, which we'll be looking at later. You'll notice that PubMed and Google Scholar are freely available on the web to search and have some freely available content that you can access. However, if you click the link to get to them from the library's website, you'll see links to get to the full text. If you click them, you'll be directed to the full text access in the library's databases, or you'll see an option to request full text through Summit or interlibrary loan. So in summary, use the links to the databases from the library's website. Also, if you need an article, book, or other resource that we don't have access to at the library, make sure to request it through interlibrary loan. This is free to you as a student so that you can have access to the resources you need for your studies. When might you use the web instead of the library? A great example might be if you needed data from the US Census Bureau or the National Center for Education Statistics. These are government websites where you can get very specific data. So again, think about what kind of information you need, whether it's general information that you would find in a textbook, more specific scientific evidence that you would find in a research study, or a data set that you might find on a government website. In the next video, we'll look at effective search strategies for searching databases.